A few years ago, something very weird happened with my best friend tonight. I was 15 years old, when one night I decided to, after a night of scary movies, we were in the mood to do something exciting not far from home. From my friend's house was a demolishing site, a block of houses in a very terrible state that would be demolished. The day after tomorrow, the local government would demolish them to make room for new houses. The whole site was fenced in, and warning signs saying "Do not enter" are hung everywhere on the houses. We're boarded up by planks, doors and windows were sealed shut, and no one could get in. We decided to go for a walk on the old block and take some random photographs of my friend's new spot where we could enter the old block. When we walked there, we noticed that every house was boarded up tight, so we couldn't get in. We noticed a house with a window on the top floor that wasn't very well boarded up. We could see into the room, so we took a photo with a digital camera. We went home and took a look at the pictures we made. Suddenly, we came across, in the photo of the window, we saw a woman dressed in a brown raincoat with white skin and black hair, as long as we could visibly see that the woman looks very sad. We hadn't seen any women up there when we took the picture. Moreover, the windows and doors were boarded. We went back to the house to see if that was correct, and after investigation, it really was. Everything was tied shut, and there wasn't a woman. It was a dangerously stormy night. Everyone in my family was doing their own thing. I was in my room watching TV. My parents were in the living room, watching some comedy shows with my sister. I was playing video games upstairs. Usually enjoy stormy nights like this, because it made me feel relaxed. I was relaxed until there was a monstrous bang on my window. I jumped up and looked outside. There was someone outside my window, but the large amount of rain pouring down the window kind of blurred his face. He started pounding at my window. It sounded like he was screaming. For help, I opened the window just a crack, and he screamed and led me. The rain was so loud, I had to scream at him to come around front. Then I shot my window. I ran outside to the living room to tell my dad that's a man, who seems to be in distress and screaming for help outside. And then came the knocks and shouts for help outside our front door. My dad was about to open the front door, but I stopped him. I said wait, because I wasn't sure if it was a good idea when the phone rang, and on the TV displayed the caller ID of our next-door neighbor, and my dad ran to pick it up when I heard him say no way. I knew something was wrong when he hung up the phone and said, "Stay away from the door." He didn't explain why he just went to the window to peek at the front stoop. There is where he said he saw a guy, crouched down, pounding on the door, holding some kind of large, sharp tool. Dad yelled through the front door at the man to go away before the cops get here. Then he actually got on the phone with the cops, eventually found the man outside and up, and he disappeared the next time we checked when my dad was on the phone. With a neighbor, he told my dad that he saw some homeless-looking guy rummaging through his shed and came out with a large chopping axe. The cops found the crazed man wandering around the streets, and it made it into the newspaper a few days later. I live in an apartment, and one day I started to hear a man swearing every morning at 4 a.m. from upstairs. I endured it once or twice, but it was so annoying to hear it at the same time. Every day I eventually went upstairs, and on the front door of the house there was a sign that read "Exorcist." I knocked on the door, and after a while a man came out, but the instant he saw me, he frowned and said, "What is a sane man not possessed by a ghost doing here?" However, his pupils were very small and his eyes were mostly white, and cold air flowed from his house like a refrigerator. I was startled, but I tried to stay calm, and said, "I live downstairs. Why do you always lose your temper at 4 in the morning?" "It's so noisy that I can't sleep." He said 4 in the morning is when evil spirits run riot the most, so I exterminate them at that time. I have no choice. Experience I exercised are investing. I glanced around his house, but it was dead quiet inside. However, before I opened the door, I had heard a lot of people were talking inside. It was really strange. He pushed me and slammed the door. I felt unsettled and got goosebumps, but I just came back home from that day on. I started to hear someone singing softly all day long. It was a faint sound at first, but the sound grew louder and closer to my ears, and I felt like I was going crazy as a result. I went back to the exorcist, and he looked at me and clicked his tongue and said, as expected, "You're possessed by a ghost. The ghost is singing a song of death in your ears." However, I couldn't believe him. So I just came back home. But after that, more creepy things started to happen. And I woke up from choking, but there was no one around, and my nose was stuffy for a while and could not be cleared up. One day I was driving, and suddenly a hand pressed my foot, and I couldn't take my foot off the accelerator. The car sped up like crazy, and I managed to get my foot off with all my strength and survive one time. When I woke up at dawn and went out to drink water, something flashed on the floor, and when I turned on the light, there was a kitchen knife under my feet. And since I live alone, nobody would have left a knife here. I thought something serious would happen if this kept up. So I visited the exorcist again and knocked on the door. The exorcist looked at me and said, "You're not dead yet. You'll survive." I finally asked him for an exorcism. I went to his house at 4 a.m., and the exorcist began to recite prayers, whispered very quickly in my ear, "Come with me to the afterlife. Let's live happily together forever in the world of the dead. Come with me." But what gave me more goosebumps was that when I heard that voice, I suddenly felt so good and found myself saying, "Okay, let's go together then." The exorcist swore at me with a very loud voice, and the voice in my ear slowly started to fade away. The exorcism continued all night, and the morning dawned before I knew it. The exorcist said that he had removed all the evil spirits and told me to go back, and never come back again. I came back home and I still heard him, swearing every morning upstairs, but I didn't dare to go there, fortunately. Nothing happened after that. However, sometimes I hear someone knocking on my door, front door, except that no one is standing outside.